The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's June the 16th, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined today by Stephen Wagner as we discuss the news of the day. And Stephen, the news of the day starts out with the news of last night as the Miami Hurricanes picked up another commitment. And this one is very intriguing because it's Elijah Lofton from Las Vegas. And he's a kid that, like, nobody's saying is one of the top players in the country or anything like that. But when you flick on the videotape and you watch this guy just play football, you start to see his value. And one of the reasons that Miami is so high on him and recruited him was that they were told by some of the players at Chaminade, including Jeremiah Smith, that this guy was the best football player that they faced last season when they played Vegas Bishop Gorman in last year's football season. So Miami took a close look. They've recruited well in Vegas before. He's listed as a tight end. They've gotten tight ends out of Vegas before, Brevin Jordan. And this one heated up really quick, and he decided to pull the trigger and commit to the Miami Hurricanes. So, Stephen, as we talk about him here, I'm going to just pop some highlights up on the screen for everybody to take a look at. But like the biggest thing that jumps out at me is that this is a kid that could play on either side of the ball. He's being recruited as a tight end. He is primarily an offensive player that you could use as an H-back. You can use as a tight end. He did a lot of damage last year, even as a fullback. And also quite often, and you're going to see it right here, lines up as a wide receiver. So this is a guy that I think potentially the offensive and the defensive coach is going to be fighting over, because like on this play, you're seeing him as a blocker. He's not just one-dimensional, and is a very physical football player. And you can visualize him, Stephen, as a linebacker if you wanted to. So there could be a battle for him at some point, a little civil war within the Miami coaches for Elijah Lofton. For now, he's coming in as an H-back tight end type of player. And, we'll see what happens from there. And here on the highlight tape, you're going to start seeing him make some really big plays catching the football. But to his credit, a lot of these highlights are as a blocker. So, Stephen, I think that this is a high-value pickup for Miami because he is not a one-dimensional player and can do so many things on the football field. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think obviously you have to address the elephant in the room, which is his size. He's 6'1" and kind of a generous 6'1" at that. I've had the opportunity to stand next to him before and chat with him. And, it does feel like he's maybe a little bit on the smaller side. But, I had someone tell me the other day that if Elijah Lofton were, 3 or 4 inches taller, if he were 6'4" or 6'5", he would be regarded as one of the top tight ends in the country. And still, he's already a 4-star recruit as it is. This is a guy who, like you said, really is multi-dimensional. He's got a lot of different uses, very, very athletic, runs very well, catches the ball very well, and is also a really good blocker. He's told me that Miami has talked to him at length about the idea of kind of having him in that H-back position and then moving him out into the slot at times to try to get him the balls in a few different ways, because you can see just by watching these tapes, he is really fast and he's really good with the ball in his hands. We see so many times we see a lot of these tight ends where, maybe they have that athleticism and that size and, the ball skills and the catching ability, but they kind of lack that speed. Elijah Lofton is a really, really tough guy to bring down in the open field. So I think that there are a lot of different things that you can do with him. I do personally think that he would be pretty good in the H-back spot, because I do think that he'll have the most opportunities to kind of move around. And I do think that that's kind of the position that you can put him at where you can kind of get the most creative with him. Like we said, you can flex him out. You can bring him in to block more traditionally as a fullback, maybe in shorter yardage packages. Might be a little bit more difficult to put him directly on the line of scrimmage in that traditional wide tight end role, but I think he could have a really, really good future as an H-back that they throw out into the slot as well.
So you like the pickup?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. At first, I really did get the concern that people had about his size. Because like we said, he's 6'1", like 215 or 220 pounds, somewhere in there, which is smaller for a tight end. And let's be honest, the guys who Miami has been getting on campus lately, especially on the defensive side of the ball, you look at guys like Justin Scott, who's coming in this weekend. He's 6'5" and 310 pounds. And you look at Dylan Stewart, who's a force to be reckoned with himself, and Colin Simmons, and a lot of these really big physical guys on the defensive side of the ball. And one thing that they all have in common is they're really, really big. And so I do get why some people were a little bit iffy on him, saying, he is just 6'1", which, I mean, let's be real, that's receiver size. You don't think of a lot of tight ends who are 6'1". Caleb Odom's another guy who they're after in this class. He's like 6'5", 6'6", and he's a lot bigger, a lot stockier. But I do think that with Elijah Lofton, you can do a bunch of things. You can do a bunch of different things. And I think he really is perfect for that H-back role. I could see him getting on the field and maybe some different, more creative, multiple personnel packages. You can definitely put him out as a receiver and while having another tight end in on the line of scrimmage. So I do like the pickup because I think that there's a lot of stuff that you can do with him.
So let me ask you this, and then I know some of our viewers are going to say, "Oh, here goes Gary again, wanting to change people's positions and stuff." But when I watch him and I take into consideration his size, does he play H-back at Miami? Do they move him around? Is he good enough to where you're moving him around in the offense? I don't know about that. Do you see any chance that he ends up as a linebacker?
Okay. It blows my mind whenever people do this. The kid is a really, really freaking good tight end. He is a really good tight end. What does he do better than anything? He catches the ball and he blocks. Oh, yeah, and he runs really well when he catches the ball.
And he's 6'1". And he's 6'1". So how many 6'1" tight ends are great in college football? I mean, I'm trying to project him to the next level now, and I see the plays he's making, but I'm assuming Miami is going to get like a Josiah Trader, okay? Like, I'm assuming that they are going to get some elite guys with the ball in their hands, that they're going to get another tight end or two in this class to go with what they got last year. Now he has to compete against Riley Williams, for example, and Elijah Arroyo. This is a whole different ball game, Steven. And I'm just looking at it and saying, okay, he's 6'1", he's physical as hell, he can run, he makes plays on offense. I'm thinking Dan Morgan. Like, I'm thinking, like, maybe is this guy best suited to be a linebacker?
Then if you want him at linebacker, recruit him at linebacker from the beginning.
I think they're going to be fighting over him at some point in his career. It's just, because of his height. I think that the offense and defense will be fight. I'm going to make that prediction right now, that there will be an internal battle for Elijah Lofton at some point within the first couple years of his career.
Height is one thing, but completely taking a guy's skill set, saying, hey, I know that this is the stuff that you've done your whole life, and this is what you are really, really good at, but we think you should do something else. I mean, we also threw this idea We threw this around with Ruben Bain last year too, saying, hey, I know he's an edge rusher, but maybe we should move him inside. Why take away his superpower for Ruben Bain? That's rushing off the edge.
Inside some. We'll see how it goes. You might see him inside a little in passing situations and stuff.
I mean, we saw Ruben Bain at the spring game. It was so obvious and clear, hey man, this guy is really going to be great off the edge. I think it's going to be the same with Elijah Lofton. Why take away the thing that he does absolutely best, which is play the tight end position? Let the kid do what he is great at, as opposed to getting him to college and basically saying, hey, all that stuff you knew about offense, throw that away. Now you're going to play defense. We're going to teach you something new from scratch.
I'm looking to see if here, let me just throw this on the screen for a minute. Riley Williams has been a stud in off-season workouts, okay? And I just want to show you, this was Riley Williams at the high school level, doing some pretty impressive things as well. Okay, Elijah Lofton has to come in and compete now against players like this. Okay, it's a whole different deal. And I'm not saying he's going to end up at linebacker. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that this is a whole different ball game now. And you see what Riley Williams could do with his size. And I just think that it's not a guarantee, that he stays a tight end. He could be a part-time type H-back player, no argument. But when I watch his skill set, I see a kid that I think could also potentially compete at linebacker, which is a tougher position to recruit. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I'm just throwing it out there because he is 6'1", and I figured I'd go on the record early on this one. Just like I was like, we're at the camp the other day, and somebody threw Ja'Cory Brown a football from 25 yards away or something. I watched how he picked the thing out of the air, and I know I've been fighting with a bunch of our viewers about this concept of Ja'Cory Brown being a wide receiver. Well, I've had somebody who knows talent tell me when they watch him, they see top 10 NFL first round pick as a wide receiver. So sometimes you can move guys around to their benefit. And we've seen it before at Miami. And, we'll see what happens with Lofton. But either way, Stephen, I think we agree, a very quality value. I call it a value pickup because of all the different things he does as a blocker, as a pass catcher, and just as a baller. When the guys at Shaman are saying he is the best player that they faced last year, the best pure football player, that speaks volumes. So nice pickup. We do certainly agree on that. All right. So as we're gearing up for this Elijah Lofton commitment, news comes flying over the wire that offensive lineman by the name of Derek Plaz, who had been committed to Penn State, had suddenly decommitted from Penn State and was taking an official visit to Miami this weekend. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the official visitors coming up here, Stephen. But you spoke to Derek Plaz, and tell us a little bit about your impressions of why he bailed on Penn State. And you got to think there's a chance he commits this weekend to Miami.
Yeah. First off, I do want to say I feel like you are turning me into Matt Shodell. I definitely understand how Matt ended up becoming the man who is Matt after, 30-something years under Gary. But with Plaz,
it's a mad thing, isn't it? You've been here what, 7 months or something?
Something like that, and I can already feel the itch to go stone crabbing out in Biscayne Bay.
Your blood pressure is percolating.
I feel it. I feel like I should have an elliptical behind me in the background instead of just like a calendar over my shoulder. But with Plaz, yeah, that really was kind of the biggest news that happened yesterday up until Elijah Lofton's commitment. And, we were out at a camp all day yesterday. Miami had another prospect camp, and it was kind of seen as, oh, well, this is going to be, the heavy focus of most of our attention throughout the day. And then all of a sudden we find out that Plauz is going to, in fact, take an official visit to Miami after all. Now, back in May, he had an official visit scheduled to Miami for this weekend, June 16th. That he actually did schedule that back in May. He then committed to Penn State while he was on an official visit there earlier this month during that first weekend of June. And then yesterday afternoon, he announces on Twitter he is going to be decommitting from Penn State. And then within 30 minutes to an hour after that, he's on the phone with Mario Cristobal, and he has an official visit set with Miami for this weekend. So he is going to be coming down to Coral Gables this weekend after all. Add that sixth and final official, what we're assuming is going to be the final official visitor to this list. And keep in mind, we actually did have him down as still taking that Miami official visit earlier this week. We called him for confirmation, and he said, no, I'm not visiting Miami after all. I'm committed to Penn State, all of that stuff. So we went ahead and we said, yeah, he's not going to be taking this visit. We can write him off. He told us himself. And then yesterday afternoon, all hell breaks loose. We're completely scrambling to, confirm all this, go ahead and get the story and put it up. So we've got a really, really good story there. Things have definitely been moving quickly. And because of the speed that things have moved at, I'm going to go ahead and place him on a little bit of a commit watch here. It would not shock me at all if he committed this weekend and became Miami's 12th commit in the class. We said there would be probably somewhere in the range of like 7-ish commitments during the month of June. Right now, I still feel like Miami's definitely on track to hit that. And certainly Plauz is kind of a guy who I think is definitely raising some eyebrows, because Mario Cristobal wasn't planning on bringing him down for an official visit if he was still committed to Penn State. He was like, hey man, if you're committed to Penn State, I don't want to bring guys here whose true interests are elsewhere. And so once Plauz decommitted,
the reason for that, I'll just throw in there, is because you have a limit of official visits. Like you don't have unlimited official visits. Kids can take unlimited visits. Schools can't host unlimited numbers of kids. So you don't want to just waste your time having somebody come in on an official who you don't have a chance to sign.
That's really well said. And because of that, I think it's very, very fair to say that Miami does feel like they definitely do have a chance to sign him because of the fact that he is coming in for this official visit. Fact of the matter is, I don't think Miami allows him to take this official visit if they don't really want him, if they don't really want to sign him. I think it's very fair to say at this point that everyone who's taking an official visit to Miami, or who Miami is holding an official visit spot for, these are major priority guys who Miami would like to see in Coral Gables.
So he's a 6'5", 280-pounder out of Jacksonville, 3-star offensive lineman. You watch his tape, you see some athleticism, the type of offensive lineman that Mario Cristobal likes. So you can see why Miami wants him. And we'll see what happens with him this weekend. All right, Stephen, let's talk a little bit about these other official visitors that are visiting campus this weekend. And we will have coverage, of course, on these official visits as the weekend goes forward. A huge one in 5-star defensive lineman Justin Scott, a guy that both you and I have put recruiting prediction machine predictions in for Miami. We think he is leaning heavily towards the Hurricanes. This is his official visit weekend. Stephen, is this the moment for Miami to lock in a commitment from Justin Scott?
I think it would be a little bit tough, just because I have a hard time seeing him announce a decision before he's finished with all of his official visits. Remember, he is still scheduled to go to Ohio State next week. Now, my personal opinion is I don't think Ohio State is nearly as big of a threat as Georgia and Notre Dame are. If I'm a Miami fan, that's where the majority of my concern would be. Even though he doesn't have an official visit locked in with Notre Dame, I think that Georgia and the Irish are really going to be the big two competitors there. However, he has taken an official visit to Ohio State, and with the way that the Buckeyes recruit, I am never, ever going to count a program like Ohio State out of the equation. But that being said, I just can't see him taking – or I just can't see him committing before he's finished taking all of his official visits. I asked him about a possible commitment timeline. He said, maybe sometime over the summer, but was, really loose and really fluid, and basically kind of one of those deals where, if he feels like the time is right, he'll go ahead and commit. But I personally, just kind of from what I've gathered, I would be surprised if he commits before he's finished taking all these officials.
He visited Georgia. He visited Notre Dame. Did that cut into Miami's lead, either one of those visits?
So Chad Simmons reported that Justin Scott told him after his Georgia official that Georgia had kind of climbed up into that top tier along with Miami. The schools that are kind of vying for the #1 spot. I kind of viewed that as, and this is just my take on things, is that, Miami was kind of up there, and, we put in that RPM for him, and, I continue to feel very good about that. Miami was up there, and then we had Georgia and Notre Dame a little bit underneath that. And then I felt like whenever he took that official visit to Georgia, it kind of seemed to me from what I read and what I gathered, that allowed Georgia to kind of pull even. Now the way I see it is with, or at least pull closer, I should say. Now, with this upcoming official visit to Miami, I see Miami as kind of having the opportunity to reclaim that gap between some of the rest of the programs. And I do think that Miami's probably going to take advantage of it. We've got a story up on the site about kind of the next test that the Hurricanes have to face for Justin Scott. And I think if they pass that, they would be in a very, very good position. But I do not think that with a guy like Scott, you're going to rush a commitment at all. And really with these blue chip guys, that's not Miami's style, to pressure these kids into committing. They're really big on this whole idea of, commit whenever you're ready to commit, do it when you feel ready. We don't want to pressure you, go ahead and take all of your visits. They're very laid back and hands off in that regard. And so especially with a guy like Justin Scott, I don't see them pressuring him into doing something before he's ready, because I think that they're aware that, that would probably make them look a little bit desperate and backfire. But I do still think that Miami's probably going to end up being in a pretty good position after this weekend.
I don't think Mario Cristobal's worried about that. I think he'll do everything he can do to try to get Justin Scott to commit, but we'll see what happens. All right, another very, very, very important visitor on the docket for this weekend is Kevin Riley. He's a 4-star running back out of Alabama, a guy that Miami absolutely loves. They're battling out with Alabama and Auburn for his services. Where do you think the Canes stand with Kevin Riley, Stephen, going into this weekend's visit?
I think that Miami's in a pretty good position with him. However, he's a guy who, generally speaking, with the media has been kind of quiet about his recruitment, and kind of quiet about, really indicating which school is out in front, which school might be the leader. But certainly he's got some heavyweight programs really slugging it out for him. Ole Miss was another program that was pushing for him pretty hard. You'll remember that Kevin Smith, Miami's old running backs coach, who's actually now the RB coach over in where the hell's Ole Miss? Oxford. That's it. He's the running backs coach over in Oxford. No one can remember Oxford, by the way. If Ole Miss was not in Oxford, nobody would have any idea where Oxford is. It's like saying, hey man, you ever been to College Station? Unless you got a buddy who goes to A&M, you never been to College Station, buddy. No. I lost my train of thought.
You lost your train of thought?
I was going somewhere with this, and I completely lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah, Kevin Riley. So I do think Miami is in a good position with him. Miami's really talking to him more than any other program at the moment. And that should tell you something about, how badly the Canes value him. This is a guy who Miami has had really, really high on their board in the running back room for quite some time now. And, I think Miami is going to do absolutely everything that they can possibly do to get him in Coral Gables. I expect them to, give him the same treatment, if not, a little bit extra treatment from what they gave Jarrett Gibson last week. I mean, we saw him posting on Twitter, videos of him in in a hotel suite. I would definitely expect Kevin Riley to get some pretty serious VIP treatment as well.
He's getting the good view. We're not going to say the name of the hotel where they stay, but he's going to get a good view, I'm pretty sure.
He's going to get a fantastic view. I do think that Miami is going to keep pushing really hard for him. And I think that as long as Miami stays consistent with this effort, I think they will be in a good position.
You mentioned Jarrett Gibson. He's the other top running back that they're in a decent place with, that they're trying to get. Do they take both of them, Stephen? If they can get them both?
I do think that is a possibility if they are able to land this level of talent. Because then as a staff, you kind of have to get together and say, guys, we have a serious chance to get two absolutely unbelievable running backs, in addition to Chris Wheatley-Humphrey, a guy who was one of their first commits a couple of months ago. So I do think that is definitely a real possibility if they did find themselves in that position.
Plethora of riches.
I don't think it's completely out of the question.
Yeah, I don't either. That's why I asked the question, man.
I do think that is a very real possibility. And I do think that if they got to the position where they had both Jarrett Gibson and Kevin Riley telling them, man, I'm ready to commit right now, I think that they would find a way to make that happen. I think that would be just way too much talent saying, hey, let me come to Miami.
Can't say no. Yeah.
For them to simply pass up on. I don't see how you get those two kids asking to come to your program and you pass on them. I think you definitely take a look at the roster and you say, well, we'll find a way to make this happen.
We'll figure it out. Yeah. All right. Another kid that's visiting that kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, he doesn't even have a star ranking yet. I mean, this is a kid that came from Germany to the United States. He's 6'5", 250 pounds. He's an offensive tackle that is moving up the charts very, very fast as more and more schools become more familiar with him. He's now at North Cross School in Roanoke, Virginia. The Virginia schools are salivating over that idea. Might be a little tough for Miami to pull him away from them, but he will visit Miami this weekend. Stephen, any thoughts on Moritz Schmoranzer? I hope I said it right.
I'm feeling like I'm probably going to have to introduce myself as Stephen Wagner whenever I get the chance to talk. Give old great grandpa August a good call, see if he can teach me some of this German. Or actually, I don't know if he spoke German, but anyway, this is another kid where it really came together fast for him. Picked up a Miami offer earlier this week, very quickly is getting to campus now. So you talk about, changing things at the drop of a hat. I mean, that is definitely what this is. And I think that also says something about just how badly Miami or just where Miami views him at and how he views Miami if he's willing to take an official visit within days of getting an offer. And if Miami is willing to start pushing for that official visit pretty much the second that they offer him, saying, hey, man, nice to meet you. Would you like to come to Coral Gables for an all expenses paid weekend filled with, everything that Miami has to offer? I think that this is definitely going to be something to watch, if nothing else, because of how unique it is in the fact that this all came together so incredibly quickly.
All right, a couple other visitors this weekend. You got Elias Rudolph. He's a 4-star linebacker out of Deerfield Beach. He'll be taking his official this weekend, as will Jaden Jackson, a 3-star defensive lineman from IMG Academy. So, like I said, we will have coverage on those official visits as the weekend goes on. And Stephen, you're doing well here. You're not fading on me. You're not falling asleep. You're getting a lot of airtime with Matt sleeping in this morning. All good. And you guys out there, if you like this show, hit your subscribe button, hit your like button. It helps us with the algorithms at YouTube. And more so than anything, we would love to have you. If you are not yet a CaneSport.com subscriber, please get on over to the site. Come on in. Join our community of fans. Your subscriptions allow us to do what we do every single day. And right now, we also have launched gift subscriptions, which you can find on the site. If you got a father out there, your father, a friend's father, buy some fathers some gift subscriptions to CaneSport.com here before we get to Father's Day on Sunday. All right, Stephen, you mentioned that we were out at the camp yesterday, which we were. It was kind of fun. And one of the kids that we saw getting a lot of attention out there was a wide receiver from Miami Palmetto by the name of Ja'Cory Barney. And Miami has really picked up their recruitment of Barney. They're going to have to slug it out with Nebraska. He's probably going to take a visit to Texas A&M. Miami's trying to ward the Aggies off. This is far from over, but it's very obvious that Miami is picking up its pace with the speedster from Miami Palmetto High School. We've got a story on the website. Make sure you guys check that out. Also have a story on the website about Miami's 2024 quarterback commit, Judd Anderson. Now, this is a guy that when you turn on the tape, you see has some skills. He's 6'5", very prototypical. The word that we've heard is that Shannon Dawson absolutely loved him and had him right there on the board with Air Nolan. Air Nolan, of course, committed to Ohio State. Miami moved on Judd Anderson, locked in his commitment. Now, top quarterbacks in the country were out at the Elite 11 this week, and Judd Anderson did not get that invite. And so we decided to take a look at him here. And we found that those people around Judd Anderson, whether it might be coaches at Miami or people up there, around Judd Anderson on a daily basis, they think that even though he didn't make the Elite 11, that this is a kid with a massive upside. Stephen, you undertook this project and took that deep dive into Judd Anderson. You spoke to Charles Power, who manages the rankings for On3. He gave you his perspective on where he thinks things are going with Judd Anderson. Should Judd Anderson have been at the Elite 11?
That really is tough to say because so much of this really does come down to, just subjective opinion. And who do you think is better? It's one thing to put guys next to each other on paper or, put traits together. But, also going out and seeing all these guys live, I do think that there are just so many different things to really factor into this. And from everything that we heard, Judd looked really, really good at the regional Elite 11 competition in Atlanta earlier this year, earlier last month, I should say. And we do expect, or I should say, Charles Power, the guy who's basically in charge of the On3 rankings, does expect his star ranking to go up a little bit. Or at least his overall industry grade should improve kind of within that 3-star range. Over the summer, he's apparently looked very, very good during the offseason. He's performed well in 7-on-7s. He was at a 7-on-7 competition at Auburn a few weeks ago, and I believe he's going to a 7-on-7 competition at Georgia, either here in the coming days or sometime very, very, very recently. Possibly could have even been yesterday. Yeah, he's really been doing well at 7-on-7 from what his high school coach has told me. And at all of the camps that he's gone to, everything that's been measured under these microscopes, he really has looked he really has looked a lot better. Keep in mind, he's also kind of going into his, second full season, or excuse me, his third full season, in kind of a more modern spread offense. The school that he was at before he transferred to the school that he's at now, Jones County, they ran an old school wing T offense. And if we're talking wing T, we're talking like 1940s and 1950s style offense. And nothing against it by any means. My high school ran a variation of the wing T, but it's an offense that's not designed to throw the football. It's an offense that's designed to ground and pound, and by its nature, it is not very quarterback friendly. So he is kind of continuing to emerge in a prototypical modern spread offense. He really does have all of the tools to make that leap forward. And Charles Power told me, if he's going to continue to, really climb these rankings, a lot of it is going to come down to what his production is in his senior season. How well does he produce whenever he's actually out there on the field? Because he actually does have pretty significant talent around him over at Jones County. He has very legitimate wide receivers and a pretty good offensive line. It's just going to come down to, can he really put up the serious numbers that we expect a quarterback committed to Miami to put up?
All right. And in addition to all this recruiting coverage, we also continue our Hurricanes 50-1 countdown, ranking the top 50 post-spring players. Today, we take a look at number 7, James Williams. So you guys can enjoy that. All right, that's going to do it for this morning for Good Morning CaneSport. Thank you so much for starting out your day with us. Remember, hit your subscribe and like buttons. And if you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please become one today so that we can continue to enhance your fan experience. For Stephen Wagner, I'm Gary Ferman. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll be back at you on this show on Monday morning. Stay on the website all weekend for coverage of this big official visit weekend coming up. Have a great day, everybody.